Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. This meeting of the Columbian Editorial Board. We are meeting with candidates for Clark County Assessor. Would like to welcome challenger Darren Wertz and incumbent Peter Van Nortwick. I'd also like to, I believe you've met reporter Stephanie Rice. She will be sitting in on this meeting. Will not be asking questions in this forum, but she might want to speak with you afterwards.
All right, sounds great.
And as noted, we are videotaping this for use on our website.
Okay.
And typically we get them up within a day or so. So thank you again for coming. I am Greg Jane. I'm the editorial page editor here at the Columbian. I will be moderating the meeting. We'll try to keep things moving. Please keep answers on topic and to the point and relatively brief. And we'll keep things moving. We'll start with some introductions. Please tell us your qualifications for the job and why the people of Clark County should vote for you. And we'll start with Darren.
Oh, thank you. Qualifications for the job. Well, the most recent qualifications, I've been in the position of clerk of the board for the Clark County Board of Equalization for the last 11 years. In that position, what we do is we oversee appeals for the assessor's office. When someone has a disagreement with the assessor's office with respect to the valuation on their property, they file an appeal, and the appeal then is heard by a board of three folks that are chosen by the county commissioners. These are taxpayers, folks generally with an education and a background in property, some kind of property. Currently we have a CPA, we have credit union executive, we have a practicing appraiser, we have an attorney, and we have a fellow that spent years on the road selling building products for business, for construction. So you have people with fairly good backgrounds. And first of all, I actually got on the board because I appealed one of my valuations and ended up being the chairman of the board. And then when our clerk left, I volunteered and took that position. Since that time, that was supposed to be a temporary job, but
when was the appeal?
My appeal, my original appeal, I think it was back in 2000. Oh, let's see, I don't know, 2001, something like that.
So it was before your time.
Oh yeah. No, no. The job as the clerk of the board kind of appealed to me because I got to wear the white hat in government, which is kind of nice. You're the good guy because you're out helping the taxpayer and trying to help people get a fair valuation on their property. During that 11 years, I wasn't totally just stagnant. I've taken several courses with respect to appraisal from the International Association of Appraising Officers, IAAO. You got a list of those. I think I forwarded that stuff to you. So that I've been trying to keep current on what's going on in the industry. Prior to that, I actually have a little bit of background because I was a commercial broker with Coldwell Banker in San Diego. Had my own business after that. Actually did business valuations and have been familiar with real estate for some time. Prior to that, this goes on and on. You guys are so nice. You get to listen. Prior to that,
Well, that's okay. Let's move on. Why should the people vote for you?
Why should the people vote for me? Because in all of this 11 years and stuff, I've been sitting back and watching and trying to see how maybe the system could work a little better. How maybe when somebody comes in as a citizen, can you actually get fair representation? Everybody just wants to be treated fairly. And as far as when everything works out and government works, that's fine. Unfortunately, things aren't always the best that they can be. And I think that with my experience and perspective in seeing how things could work, how things should work, and how things do work, I have an option to present the people of Clark County with someone that maybe would have a little different attitude with respect to the taxpayer, the property owner, a little different attitude with respect to how things should be done, maybe a different perspective on who you're actually working for. I'm not working for politicians. I wouldn't work for government per se. Basically, the job of assessor is one of doing a technical valuation of properties. You do that for both parties. Doesn't matter what party you're a member of. You actually, if you own property, you're subject to taxes. The best treatment that you can expect is to have those taxes fair. And the best way to have them fair is to have the allocator or the valuation that the assessor does done accurately and fairly. There's a technical expertise factor that needs to be taken into account. I am almost a PhD in econ. I have several years. I've been senior economist for the Clark PUD. I was with the Naval Personnel Research and Development Center. I've testified before OMB. I've built models. I know how models work. I have the technical background to do the job. I have the perspective to do the job for the people that the job needs to be done for. And consequently, I think I can offer the people of Clark County a better alternative than what they have now.
Thank you, and I apologize. Peter. Excuse me.
Oh, that's okay. You need a drink of water? Or?
Normally we have water in here, and I should have set that up. Anyway, please tell us, why should the people of Clark County retain you?
Well, if you recall, when I came into office, we had an office that was running behind. It was, in my opinion, bloated. I brought in a culture of continuous improvement. We've seen great success in that. This year, for the first time in 24 years, we mailed evaluation notices on time. Last year, we spent 21% less than the office did in 2009. We reduced staff from 45 to 39. So we were able to do well by the taxpayers. I returned $632,000 to the taxpayers. And for me, the bottom line is the way that you show respect to the taxpayers is you make it so that you are using the least amount of money, you are taking the least amount of money out of their pocket that you can. And so I've come in, we made things much more efficient. Not only am I saying it's more efficient, the MRSC put us down as a featured practice. One of the things is that I know you're all familiar with the joint lobby. It was put forward by Doug Lasher in a memorandum of understanding in 2003. For years, it was just a co-located, office. When I came into office, I said, no, we need to go and move forward with the cross-training. And so I went and I pushed the cross-training. And as of this year, we have 15 employees that are, and the first 15 in the state, that are deputies of the assessor, the auditor, and the treasurer's office. And see, when people come into the office, they don't come into the office to see the assessor, or the auditor, or the treasurer. They come in to get functions done. And what we've been able to do is bring it in, and so people don't need to be passed off from office to office. We can all sit there and help them with the different transactions, whether it's happening in the auditor's office or the treasurer's office or the assessor's office. And that takes great working together. I work really well together with Greg Kimsey, who's endorsed me, and Doug Lasher. And, I took it even further. As one of the things that I came into the office, I found that work was really siloed. We have different levels called OA2s and OA3s. OA2s can only do a certain amount of work, and OA3s can do other kinds of work. And what was happening is we were having to have OA2s do part of the work and then hand it off to OA3s. And I says, that's not efficient. And so what I did is and it took me working through the human resources at Clark County what's called an alternately staffed position, and I recently, Stephanie Rice was there at the board meeting when I got the last of those positions done. What we did is said when people come in and we start them at OA2s, as they get the skills and get better, they can move up to directly to OA3s. Because one of the things was I found it was really inefficient for one person to do part of it and then hand it off, when it was much more efficient for one person to be able to take it to cradle and grave and then go back and audit. And so, say the MRSC, says it's great. They came out, they looked at us. We have, the numbers comparing year to year. Before we did the cross training, we had to pass off, looking at a month, 166 people between the offices. After we finished the cross training, we only had to do 7. The wait time for people was 27 hours. We got it down to 1.6. And so we've made things much more efficient for the people of Clark County. And for me, the bottom line of respect is spending less money, not making them spend as much time, and making the office more efficient. And to me, that is the crux of respecting the taxpayer of Clark County.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned reducing the budget over the years and staffing. What has been the drawback? What has been lost from those cuts?
I would say nothing has been lost. Our efficiency is up. I mean, every year the Department of Revenue comes in and they look at what our ratios are. When I came into office, it was 92%. Now it's up to 96%. So that's more, we're more accurate. Our total number of appeals are down. One of the things that I did is I got our people out in the field with laptops, and so we don't have a lot of rework. Our people can go and see more properties and get the information directly into the system with less rework. That means we can see more properties, get things done more. It also means that we can move along new construction faster. I brought in the finance managers and the city planning managers of all the different cities, brought them in together and says, we need to work together to make this system more efficient, because it's really vital for the city that we get new construction on. And they needed this, the city planners, the people in the building department, they need to hear from their finance people, yes, you need to get the information to the assessor's office so it can work. And so we were able to do that. And the end result of that really speaks for itself. I'm endorsed by Mayor Sean Gard. I'm endorsed by Mayor Higgins. I'm endorsed by Tim Levitt, Larry Smith, Shane Bowman. I got the endorsements of, majority of the mayors of Clark County. It's because we work well with them and we've made the whole process more efficient.
Darren, what do you see as the drawback to the changes that have been made?
Well,
is the department more efficient now?
As far as efficiency, it depends on what metrics you're going to use. Okay, I think the bottom line for the assessor's office, and I'll get to this right away, is whether or not they're assessing property fairly and accurately. Our office, for the first time in over 30 years that I'm familiar with, has received an order from the Department of Revenue to take a look at one of the assessments that's been done for the one of the property owners in the county, where they've been valued at almost 2.5 times what a certified appraiser here locally has come up with as being the assessed value, or the actual value, market value on the property. And that's abysmal to have that kind of error factor. Again, when we get down to what is fair and how you best do this job, the bottom line is, if you do the job, it's a technical job.
Like you said, that one example you gave, you said that's the only time that you're aware of that has happened.
That we've actually been mandated by the Department of Revenue. Now,
is one instance enough to draw conclusions?
One instance is enough to draw conclusions that should have never happened in this county. Since the incumbent has taken office, the size of, shall we say, the disparities between values that are appealed and actual market value have been increasing. I have several cases here where it approaches 100% overvaluation. Not all of those actually get through the appeals process. A lot of those get stipulated. When things go back to the assessor's office and they say, hey, look, I have an appraisal from somebody else that's certified by the same state board that you guys are certified by, why are you so different? Then logically you would expect that the assessor would go out and take another look at it. Now the assessor doesn't go through and do a single property appraisal on every piece of property. They use mass appraisal. There's only enough people in the office to actually go out and physically look at the properties once every 6 years. In the intervening time, that's 5 years, you're doing this all statistically. That's why the statistics get to be important. But the fact is that when you have the variance that we've had, and it's been increasing over time to where, like I said, now we've actually got a case that's been appealed to the state, and the state is mandating us as a local board to take a look at it. Yes, that is a very significant thing, especially when it's backed up with a continuing degradation, I'll say anyway, of the accuracy of appraisals for the county.
And these kinds of mistakes would never happen if you're in the job, right?
These kinds of mistakes will never happen. Have I ever been in the job?
No,
Mr.
but
Procaccio? No.
when you get in the job, these kinds of mistakes would never happen.
I would certainly hope not.
Well, hoping,
You know, and the reason that they would probably not happen is because I have the kind of background where I've dealt with modeling, I've dealt with appraisals throughout my professional career. When you see a variance starting to increase, when you see deviations in your performance, you get on it. You don't waste time. Unfortunately, I don't think that the current assessor had the assets on board to actually address some of the technical parts. He may have had people that in the past had dealt with that, but they were shuffled around maybe to doing other things, or maybe just kind of pulled their horns in under the current administration. I don't know. But yes, there would definitely be a much smaller chance of this ever happening under my administration.
Now, you've said that the office has become less user-friendly. Is that the kind of thing you mean when you say it's become less user-friendly?
Less user-friendly with respect...
For taxpayers.
For taxpayers. All that I can tell you is that in sitting down there and hearing the appeals, that people actually have screwed their courage to the sticking post and taken on big government and actually decided to appeal their valuations. When they come in and they say, the board will ask, have you talked to the folks at the assessor's office? Well, yes. What did they say? They said appeal it.
Have the number of appeals increased from Clark County?
The number of appeals is determined, well, I don't know, it varies between 1% and 3% typically of your assessed values. And a lot of that is determined by whether the market's going up, whether the market's going down, whether people's disposable income is such that they're really sensitive to changes in valuation. Over time, I think the last 4 years, they went down and then they're back up. I have a nice little chart I can show you if you want. But they're,
And then of those that are appealed,
Yeah.
has the percentage that get overturned, has that changed?
Well, actually, the percent of decisions by the board that are going for the taxpayer has been increasing over the last time. That brings up another, when either the assessor or the appellant can appeal the board's decision to the state. They have 30 days to do that. And if you don't like what you think you hear, you can do that. When the incumbent has appealed to the state, and I went back and put the data together, it looked like about 77 cases were actually appealed to the state by the incumbent. The state ruled for 5 of those cases in favor of the incumbent. So the track record of the Board of Equalization with respect to the soundness of their decisions has been fairly well upheld in over 95% of the cases that were directly appealed to the State Board of Tax Appeals. That's,
By the way, I just interrupt. By the way, I've appealed 5. You can go and look it up on Board of Tax Appeal. All you have to do is go to Board of Tax Appeal, search through cases, and you can put in the appellant as Peter Van Nortwick, Clark County Assessor, and 5 of them. That's it. Those are the numbers that I've
So that's
actually.
you appealing to
I've
the
appealed
state.
those that I've appealed that have heard decisions. We've appealed a few more, but of those that we appealed, and they have decisions, 5 of those. And so, say,
well,
go and look at BTA, look it up. A lot of times people appeal when the Board of Equalization has sustained their value. And so those are most of the hearings. I got to go back to the accuracy. The Department of Revenue tracks this.
excuse me, Peter, if you're going to come in and denigrate my facts, then show me something. I have the facts right here. I have 77 cases. Now, this is, just because you say something doesn't make it so. Back it up, please. I have the data, and I'd be more than happy to provide that here.
Well,
I don't know if we want to get too far into the weeds on that
Yeah.
specific. Let's see. And Peter, you say you are working to develop an online appeals process.
Yes.
But if somebody has a complaint, shouldn't they just be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody in your office? I think a lot of people are turned off by having to go online to.
It's always an option. King County has developed one where you go in and you can just put your information, you get the sales back. And one of the questions it always asks is there anything materially wrong we have, like the square footage of your home or anything like that, that may be causing an error in valuation. And so, they have that. But yeah, every day people call up and they talk to our appraisers, the AODs. We talk to these people. Sometimes people think the value should be lower. My appraisers disagree. I mean, that's the thing to remember is when people call in and they're unhappy with their value, they're talking to the county staff. It's really rare that something gets pushed up to the level of the assessor to actually go and deal and talk with it. And, I'm proud of what my staff has done. I mean, when I came into office, and the Department of Revenue keeps track of how accurate your assessments are. And when I came into office, it's at 92%. Now our ratio is at 96%. You can go out and look at the Department of Revenue. In terms of appeals, you know what? The numbers are tracked. They're reported every year in assessor summary reports to the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue provides oversight to the assessor's office. They also provide oversight of the Board of Equalization. And that kind of brings me to the fact that our clerk here, the Board of Equalization, in 2012, they did a review pointing out that they need to write cases with a well-reasoned decision. We've actually had to have the prosecuting attorney go in and sit in on some of their cases and try and figure out why aren't they writing decisions with cases with well-reasoned decisions. In
Excuse
2014,
me, when the prosecuting attorney came in, we have staff attorneys assigned to the Board of Equalization and to the Assessor's Department. Now, contrary to your opinion, you have absolutely no statutory jurisdiction over the Board of Equalization, Peter. I don't care what you say. The people from the prosecuting attorney's office that came in was our staff appointed representative from the prosecuting attorney's office to see if there was anything behind supposed conduct, I guess, of the board. Again, I would have to refer you back to whether how many times the board has been sustained with respect to the validity of their decisions. That's pretty self-evident. As far as the audit goes, we welcome audits. It was the first one that was ever done on the Board of Equalization. Sure, that's fine. How are you going to find out if you're doing things right unless you get audited occasionally? We're working with the state.
And what were the results of that audit?
The results of the audit were that we needed to change a lot of forms. bring them up to date. We had the wrong version of the forms. We had, they wanted us to have a more reasoned decision. And I offered, and actually the board has requested that we have examples provided. I mean, we're more than willing to change and you know, whatever they need. We have 3 individuals, citizens. This is not attorneys that are sitting there hearing. This is supposed to be a people's court. There is, if you want to get into the weeds a little bit on this, a different level of law at the Board of Equalization than there is in the normal appellate court with respect to discovery and with respect to the kinds of things that you can bring in. Heretofore, actually my predecessor and several of the other Board of Equalizations in the county and the state, there are 30 some, one for each state, have had very brief kind of responses on their hearings. You came in and you either won or you lost, and that was it. Well, the audit said we want to have a little bit more detail. Okay, so we're working to get the more detail. And
Well, they're both number-based decisions, the assessor's office and you talked about statistics-based, math-based,
yeah.
numbers-based, so that seems relatively sloppy from a standpoint of the way that's working over there, and it's for a guy that appears to be statistical based, that seems kind of sloppy.
Well, not really, because if the Board of Equalization is here, there are going to be things in that forecast, those 5 years, that falls between the cracks. One of the things that you might be able to relate to is the sex offender deal. We had some folks come in and said the property assessed on my the value assessed on my property is way too high because I'm trying to sell it and I can't sell it for what I want to sell it for. And why? Well, because people were being placed in that residence by the owner, and they were level 3 sex offenders. Neighborhood found out about it. Nobody wants to live there. Nobody wants to have any kind of thing to do with that particular piece of property. What's the value of that property? Are they being treated fairly with respect to the market value of that property? Well, the market value of that property then all of a sudden falls out of the normal striations that you would do for your data, and it becomes a very specific case. So then, what the board has to do is try to figure out where in the market would that be. And so you have a substantially reduced sample size, and you have very specific responses. It's not sloppy. It's quite tidy, actually. It's tidying up the places where normal statistics don't work.
Well, if I could just say something, a well-reasoned decision would say, this house sits next to a home with a sex offender. Because of that, either we lowered it a certain percentage, or we lowered it a certain dollar amount. In the assessor's office, if they do that, I can come in and say they've made either a percentage adjustment or a dollar adjustment that I can put into the model and then do that. For me to make adjustments within the model, I have to have market evidence to back it up. And if I don't have market evidence, I have to value within equity. And so, yeah, the issue is if the Board of Equalization just comes back and says, this house came here, we lowered it $50,000, and they never said why, that doesn't give me anything to work with. You're right, it is very sloppy. A well-reasoned decision tells you this is the dollar adjustment we made, and here's why we made it, and this is what we made it to. That is what the Board of Tax Appeal does. Anytime you get a decision back from them in the Board of Tax Appeal, they'll bring it back and they'll lay out the evidence. Then they'll say this is why they made the decision, and here's the final decision. The way it works at the Board of Equalization, imagine yourself going into court, and all of a sudden the judge came back and gave you a decision. And you said, Judge, why did you make the decision? And the judge's response was, listen to the evidence. That's what we've been getting from the Board of Equalization for years. And it is very sloppy. And it's not something that I can work with. And that's why we asked the Department of Revenue. They said they're going to do reviews of the Board of Equalization. We stood up, and one of the first ones that says, I want mine done first. We want them to go look. I mean, he's talked about it happened in 2012. What I just showed Lou here is 2013, and still the Department of Revenue is saying they need an order with a well-reasoned decision. I mean, the clerk of the Board of Equalization has one basic role. You can talk about helping the taxpayer and everything, but he's the clerk. It's like a court clerk. His job is to record what happens within the Board of Equalization and to communicate that clearly to all parties, to the taxpayer, to the Department of Revenue, to the assessor's office, to any citizen that wants to come in and look at that. One of the things is we have a zero-sum game in the way taxes are. If a county or I should say a city, school district, whatever, if they have a bond or whatever and we're to collect $22 million, I'm going out and I'm collecting $22 million. Doesn't matter if assessed values are going up or down. And so when people's value are being lowered without any market evidence, that basically shifts those taxes from that person onto the rest of the taxpayers. In actuality, I think Darren said about 2 or 3% of the people appeal. That's also available from the Department of Revenue. They keep track of it every year. It's less than 0.5%. Less people appeal than we'll have sitting in Clark County's jail tonight. I mean, the Department of Revenue has the statistics. They're out there. We're measured. We have oversight. I sent you guys earlier our levy audit. Basically one of the things that they said, one of my jobs, a lot of our jobs is oversight. And one of the things that they said is that when we're doing our job, it's clear that we take great care. We make sure that when we're doing stuff that it's well documented. I mean, the contrast is significant. Here they're saying they need to write well-reasoned decisions. They're not. Whereas they audit us, they're like, you have everything so well documented.
Now,
and that's what
who
it
audited
is.
you?
Department of Revenue.
When was that?
Could I ask you a question
Sure.
about the Department of Revenue tracking? You mentioned that it was 92% of something.
Yeah.
It went from 92 to 96. What's 92% of what?
What they do is they take a ratio of the assessed value to the sales price of homes. So they go in and they take a look at homes that's sold, and then they take a look at based upon the model, what were they assessed at? And they do a ratio. So if a home sold for $100,000, right, and it's assessed at $92,000, then it's at 92%.
Right. And the law is that it should be at 100%. That's the guidelines under which the assessor's office is run for the state, and that is one of the goals that the incumbent stated in his last campaign, that he would, by golly, be up there at 100%.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, Darren, because just recently we're about ready to send ours in, and in terms of residential properties, we're at 98%, and 100% because we tier the properties. Commercial properties, they're much harder to deal, and so we're actually about 90% on the commercial properties. Our ratio is 96%. That's a higher accuracy ratio than most of the other assessor offices around the state. Of the big assessor's offices, we're right up there at top. That's one of the reasons I'm in leadership in the Washington Association of County Assessors. They actually put me also, I'm a certified general appraiser, by the way, and I'm the only assessor that is a certified general appraiser. That means I'm the only person in this room that's actually qualified to go out and appraise anyone's home.
No, you're the only person licensed to go out.
Yeah.
There are other people in this room that are qualified.
No, you cannot appraise property without a license or certification.
Peter, I am not going to charge anybody for an appraisal, but I am qualified to appraise property, and I made my living doing that.
Just one more thing. Do the accuracy numbers then, are they dependent upon what's happening in the market? In other words, if there are a lot of high-end homes that are selling, those are probably, I'm guessing, a little tougher to hit right on the money. If if the market is very, very depressed and there are a lot of lower-end homes?
What they do is they come in and they select sales and say, okay, here's certain market sales that happened, and what were they assessed at based upon those, what they were valued were, based upon the model, what were they assessed at? Our ratio's gone up. I mean, it's a simple number, you know. If it sold for 100,000 and you had it at 92, you're at 92%. If it sold for 100,000 and you have it at 96, you're at, 96%. The truth is that you're always anything above 95% is really at 100% because you have a bell curve, right? And the closer you push toward 100%, the more are going to be over the top. And so we have really strove toward getting more accuracy. And the bottom line is that based upon the numbers, the statistics from the Department of Revenue, we've met that.
That's a good point, Peter, because, I mean, like you said, when you hit 100, you have equal over-assessment and under-assessment. Now, the other part of that maybe isn't real evident is that the degree of that error and the steepness of the slope of that bell curve determines the fairness of your tax assessments and the use of valuation of property as an allocator, a fair allocator. As your delta and your error factor goes up, the use of valuing our property at market, at 100% of market, which is what it should be, declines.
Are
And
other
that's what we're
counties at
seeing.
100%?
No. The point that I'm trying to make is that this is a mechanism for allocating the cost of government. If you're not accurate, then and if you have large error factors, then you're not doing the job as well as it could be done. Now, targeting 100% of market is the law. That's what we're supposed to do.
Well, how many
Okay.
people are thrown in jail for not hitting that 100%?
I don't know.
Okay.
How many people are thrown in jail for not obeying all the statutes that the legislature puts out?
The 100% thing feels more like a goal, almost an unattainable goal, as opposed to, hey, you're at 96%, you're in the Who-Scout. See what I'm saying?
Right. It's a goal only because it's the law.
It's a goal only because nobody's
It's
gonna
kind
hit
of
it.
like 65 miles an hour. It's a goal only because it's the law. Now, if you happen to go over it, you've exceeded your goal. And somebody might hold you accountable, but they would only hold you accountable to the amount that you deviated from the law. The law is the standard. That's all it is.
I mean,
Especially when you're trying to do a statistical kind of, or a valuation thing.
right.
Numbers get to be important.
Here's the thing for me. This is yet another weird race in Clark County because even though I'll later ask you about the charter, you guys, I don't know, you guys do what you guys do, and you guys are looking for issues. Who knows what these issues are? And it feels, in listening to this, it feels like you are desperately searching for an issue that doesn't really exist.
I'm desperately searching for a job that needs
okay.
that really, and that's what I'm telling you and I want this job, and I want this job for any reason that anybody wants a job is because you feel like you can do good, you
not
can
for
do
the
it
paycheck.
better. Well, I don't know. Do I look like I'm suffering? Excuse me.
Well, just on just
let
the point
me
of that.
ask you this. Yes, I do want this job, and I do, and I'm
You'll take the
really
paycheck.
seriously.
You'll take the paycheck.
I'll
He
take the
wants the
paycheck.
job so much he's dressing like Peter.
Yeah.
Okay,
Here's the
you go
issue.
back and look at the way Peter dressed last election, and then see who's following whom.
Okay, well, there's one thing I do want to say about this, and that is Darren's retirement will double, about if he gets this job. It will definitely go up a significant amount.
Okay, I'm sorry. I haven't
You know, he
gone to
ran
the
in
retirement
2012.
seminars. I haven't even looked at my retirement. I'm sorry.
Well, you know how it's based upon. It's based upon certain percentage of years you worked plus your highest years of income. If you get this job, your retirement will go up significantly. And I know you know that.
Let's just
We got to
say
get
that,
you guys on 401ks. You know that?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I am on PERS 3, which is defined benefit, where I go and I put my own money into the plan.
That's good. I'm on PERS too because I didn't want to mess with it. But
Yeah.
But Lou, ask him about the charter.
So where do you guys stand on the charter? You know, we want to know.
well, you got. If you want the political opinion, ask my opponent
Well,
here.
let's start with you, dear.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
How does that affect the assessor's job?
People want to know because this is a broad-ranging, wide sense of appreciation for you two guys.
Well,
And-
I'm not that broad-ranging. All I want is the assessor's job.
Well, no, I know that, but how are you going to vote on the charter?
How am I going to vote on the charter?
Yeah.
And the reason that that's important is because I am in the public eye, correct?
Okay, good.
With the perspective on county government.
With the perspective. I haven't decided yet.
Do you think anybody believes that?
I do.
You do? Okay. All right.
I do, and I'm the one that's voting. So
Yeah, I know. All right. Yeah, get back to me on that.
Yeah.
Peter, how are you voting on the charter?
Well, you know, I supported the charter process. I went out when they went out, and freeholders were there. You know, I went out with Greg Kimsey and Steve Stewart, and we talked about the charter. And I prefer a form of government that includes a county executive. The fact that the current charter, in the way that they've done it, does not include an elected county executive, I believe is a fatal flaw. And so for that reason, I have decided that I would not support a charter. My biggest concern has always been, and it started when the Shoney Bria situation out in Battleground, is I've seen a lot of appointed officials that seem to do divide and conquer of their elected boards. And so for that reason, you know, I don't like the fact that it doesn't have an elected official. They chose not to do it, and I don't see a reason at this point to support the charter.
Okay, putting the charter aside for a second, do you believe that there should be more county commissioners than 3, regardless of the charter?
Yeah, I believe that there should be more county commissioners than 3.
Okay.
I would support 5 county commissioners
Okay.
or more.
Okay. Did you make up your mind yet?
Well, with respect to a couple of things. One is, and I will disagree with maybe the ultimate wisdom of electing an administrator, because when you elect somebody to office, generally you're putting somebody in a political position, and you're not necessarily requiring that they have the kind of background that would allow them to survive doing that job in the public sector or the private sector. I would like to see guaranteed that at least the administrative level of the county has somebody in it that has the qualifications that would allow them to run an equally sized business in the normal economy. I don't see that there's any guarantee that you would get that in an elected position.
So are you suggesting that the governor should be appointed?
Does the governor actually run things administratively? Okay, and this is probably the best board to ask that because you guys all have your opinions on that. But with respect to the assessor's office, we have an elected person in charge. We also have a deputy assessor who is required by the state to be licensed, required by the state to be able to run the department. The fact that the incumbent has his certification as an appraiser is probably a good thing because it gives him some kind of credibility with respect to understanding the process. I think I have equal or better credibility in understanding the process and how things should run. But if he's out appraising stuff and the position isn't designed or required to have an appraisal certification, seems like the public is paying for one position too many. Because if you're required to have a deputy appraiser that is licensed, and I think he brought one on when he took office, and if I'm not, we're talking about salaries here. I think that salary is more than the elected salary. Then I think that the taxpayers are paying for too much people.
Well, now, speaking of politics, you are running, you've stated no party preference.
Correct.
Why?
Why? Because I don't think taxes are partisan. I don't think that because I own a piece of property, I think that's an equal opportunity, shall we say, venture for American citizens. Home ownership has been part of the basis of our quality of life as Americans here forever.
Peter,
If-
should it be a partisan office?
You know, I do believe it should be a partisan office. And the main reason is you look at counties around the state where they have nonpartisan elected officials such as the assessor and treasurer. A lot of times when they run for re-election, there is no one to challenge them. And I think always having an opponent, having someone challenge you is a benefit. And the fact is that the party structure allows someone that wants to challenge to have some sort of backing, have some sort of support to help them craft the message, to help really take a look at the issues that are out there and really allow people to really get their voice and have a platform on which to stand. So I do believe that is important as elected officials, as did the freeholders. That was one of the choices. Should it be nonpartisan or partisan? And after looking at it, the freeholders decided that these positions should continue to be partisan.
So you're saying it's always good to have an opponent. Is Darren a good opponent?
Well, I guess he's as good as any opponent. One of the facts that I do appreciate is I have a good working relationship with Doug Lasher and Ed Barnes. I work well with all the people at the county, and I am really proud that the Democratic Party did not see it necessary to put up an opponent against me. So I guess for that I'm appreciative to the Democratic Party and all the Democrats out there.
Okay.
Darren, have you run for office before?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm on my second term as city council for Ridgefield. Haven't been opposed, unfortunately. Well,
That's
unfortunately, I'm a little new at this political stuff.
And that's the only time you run for, that's the only office that you...
No. As a matter of fact, I tried to run for county commissioner in the and I was eliminated in the primary against Mr. Milkey. Okay.
Are you forgetting the freeholder process?
I threw my name in the hat for the freeholder, primarily because you were able to put in there what your criteria were for what you wanted to see come out of the process. And even though I could or couldn't win, I wanted to have my 2 cents worth in there. And so that's available in the voters pamphlet for the freeholders if anybody wants to go and look at it and see where I am with respect to how I feel the government should work.
I just want to make it clear is I'm the assessor. I'm interested in being the assessor. I'm not interested in being the commissioner. I'm not interested in being a freeholder. I'm not looking for a job. What I am interested in is making the assessor's office be the best assessor's office in the state of Washington. And I think I'm doing really well toward getting that if we're not already there. One of the other things that is great, one of the other things, you're right, it is, Darren, and that's why the Department of Revenue figures are so great to back me up. But one of the things is that I'm also very proud of is the National Association of County Officials. I am on the steering committee for economic development. I was chosen by my peers in the state of Washington to be on that steering committee to go back and work on economic development at the National Association of County Officials. I worked great with Mike Bomar, CRDC, the Vancouver Visitors Bureau. I go and I talk to those people I work with, and we go back and we work on setting policy at the national level and lobbying Congress people as to how to best help counties on a national basis. And I'm very proud to have that appointment. I've been appointed for the second year on that.
Peter, is it fair to say that in the overall context of the assessments that you put out, that when you're looking at that, perfect sweet spot, that you probably have just as many that are a little low as are a little high? Is that
In
you
a
have
bel-
them both?
In a bell-shaped curve, that's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Right.
I mean, a perfect example, and this is, I'll use a great example. Let's just say you have 4 properties that are identical. They're all listed at $215,000. Someone comes in, offers $205,000 for that house, right? And the person accepts the offer. Next person comes in, offers $205,000, and they go, no, we counter, sells at $210,000. Another one, same thing happens, and then one, people go, hey, I just want the house, they sell for $215,000. So you have 4 identical homes, one sold for $205,000, 2 sold for $210,000, and 1 sold for $215,000. My job is to come in and say, what is really 100% of market value? There's always a range of value in homes,
Right.
from $205,000 to $215,000. In that case, I'd try to go and say they're all assessed at $210,000. The one that's assessed at $205,000, it doesn't mean just because it sold for less it's underassessed. Or the one that sold for $215,000 is
Right.
overassessed. The model would say that the market value for that house is $210,000, and that's what I strive to do.
Have you ever had anybody come in and say their assessment was too low?
Yes, we do have people that come in and appeal their assessments as being too low.
What percentage of people do that? I mean, compared to all of the appeals? 2?
Actually, they don't appeal to him, they appeal to us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but
There's always a few percentage that do it. I mean, we have one gentleman that comes in every year to appeal. What's his name? The guy that's out in Hawkinson. But his issue is actually, I think, wheelchair access to the Board of Equalization. But he'll oftentimes appeal that his assessed value should be higher. Yeah.
there's always good people in here.
Yeah. But typically when people call up and they want their assessed value to be higher, typically say we got to do it because of the model. A lot of times when people call, it's because suddenly they put their house on the market,
Right.
and then they're like, well, we want our assessed value to show more. And, that's not really fair to the people that are going to buy it. And so we also have to value inequity with a model.
Right.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, gentlemen, give us your closing arguments. And please briefly mention your top 3 or 4 endorsements, if you would. Give it, 1 minute each. Go ahead, Darren.
Top 3 for endorsements. Thank you. The issue is not the plus or minus 10% that the state allows the assessor to be within when they're looking at overall performance on assessments. That's normal statistics. The issue is when those things get out of hand, the case being brought forward where it's actually almost 2.5 times the assessed value. And it's not the board that's doing it, it's another certified appraiser in this county that is differing with the assessor's office. We currently have several of the appeals coming in, and the evidence submitted is fee appraisals done by other professionals in the business. The question becomes, where is the integrity of the office? Is it being done as well as it should be? Has the quality diminished? Yes. In this incumbency? Yes, it has. Can I do a better job? Yes. Yes, I can. I would really like a chance to do it right. So, thank you.
And I'm sorry, endorsements?
Endorsements? I guess you just have to say that I'm endorsed by the property owners that want a fair shake.
Thank you. And Peter?
Well, I came in, I made the office better. We put in a culture of continuous improvement. Just recently, Francine sent out an email talking about continuous improvement of being the wave of the county. We set the standard in terms of what other departments are doing. We came in, we made things more efficient. We've worked well with the taxing districts. Now you want to know, I've cut cost. I got the office on time. Everything that people want government to do. I know a lot of times you guys write editorials that say we want government to hold the line. I've not only hold the line, I've reset the cost curve. I mean, going from about $4.4 million per year spending down to about $3.4 million, a little bit about $900,000. I mean, that's huge. At the same time, my opponents increased his budget 12%. He's raised property taxes in Ridgefield from what they collected, 5 years ago to now 18%. Government has to live within its means. I've shown that. I've shown that I can work well. I mean, I'll tell you, my endorsements. I'm endorsed by the commissioners. I'm endorsed by the mayors of Clark County. I'm endorsed by my fellow elected officials. I mean, what more can I say than, I got Greg Kimsey's endorsement. I got Scott Weber's endorsement, David Medor, Tom Milkey, Tim Levitt, Larry Smith. I have not asked Ed Barnes, and the only reason is because it is a partisan office, and asking Democrats, I haven't asked Doug Lasher. That puts them in a really awkward position. And so, but the nonpartisan ones, such as, Mayor Gard, Scott Higgins, Shane Bowman, Tim Levitt, they all endorse me. I mean, they like the job that we're doing. I'm also endorsed by, I'm really proud to say, the Clark County Firefighters Union. And so I think I'm the only Republican out there that actually one of the unions has come out and given me an endorsement. And I'm proud to have really gone and secured that endorsement.
Great. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
you.